This morning, grab a plate and get ready for some leftovers. It's time for the annual Turkey Awards on Inside Texas Politics. A lot of new faces at the table this year. Elon Musk, Eric Johnson in the Dallas City Council, Joe Rogan, Wayne Hamilton, Kevin Roberts, Kamala Harris, and Katrina Pearson. Plus, some regulars are returning. Greg Abbott, Jeff Leach, the Texas Democratic Party, and Texas public school officials, among others. It's time for the annual Turkey Awards to recognize the best in Texas politics and those that could have done better this year.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
And good Sunday morning to you. We're hoping you're having a good holiday weekend. This morning, we're handing out the leftovers. It is tradition here at Inside Texas Politics. We give a turkey leg to those in politics who have something to brag about this year. And guess who gets the gizzard? Those who could have done better. So handing out the Turkey Awards, as always, every year, the ITP Roundtable. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I am Mitra with us from Austin at the Texas Tribune, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer from WFAA in Dallas, and myself. And I will start off the Turkey Awards, as I have in years past. And hear me out on this one, okay? I'm giving a turkey leg. I'm giving honors to Kamala Harris and Democrats. Why in the world would you give honors to Kamala Harris and Democrats after what we saw earlier this month? Here's my reasoning for this. Where are the allegations of voter fraud? Where are the lawsuits over voter fraud? Democrats and Kamala Harris, they took a loss, they went home. Plus, Joe Biden ceremoniously met with Donald Trump, though Trump didn't meet with Biden 4 years ago. Here's the deal. Democrats are acting like the adults in the room before they walk out and cede power. How many crazy tweets am I going to get on this one, Bud?
You know, I think that people will wonder who the gizzard's going to later on.
Yeah, right.
I do think it's a good point, but remember the reason that the Democrats are doing all this is because they want to run again in 4 years, and they want to run again and stand on the platform and say, you know, look at us. We had an orderly transfer of power. We were respectful about this. You know, we weren't being spirited like the past president. So that this is more campaigning. Yeah,
but do voters really care about that, Bernadine? I mean, clearly they showed that they didn't by re-electing Donald Trump.
Well, I don't think they care about that. But also keep in mind that this is her style. This is the Democrats this is Biden's style, where they are gracious. And I think that that's what we saw once they lost. And just because they lost doesn't mean that they don't deserve a leg. Yeah. Because they were gracious. And
we have a bunch more to get to here. I want to ask one more question on this, though. I'm going to ask you the question here. Do you think Kamala Harris runs again in 4 years?
No, I don't. I doubt that. That's likely. I think there's probably going to be some kind of real deep looks within the Democratic Party about where they want to move from here. But it's hard to see that they will repeat with a Harris nomination.
I think you're right about that. And you have the next award. It is a gizzard. Who's it for?
I got a gizzard for a panel of the Fifth Circuit Court of Federal Appeals, and this is related to their order in this fall to remove federal judge Janice Jacks from hearing a case, overseeing a case involving the Texas's broken foster care system. You know, Janice Jack has been, in 2015, she ruled that the system was unconstitutionally harming kids in the system. She cited major abuse, overwhelmed caseworkers. And not only did she make that ruling, she's held hearings since then to kind of keep the system to task. And so, you know, when state leaders kind of appealed to this panel, the panel basically said that, you know, Judge Jack was acting in an antagonistic demeanor and, you know, was questioning some of the aspects of fairness. And ultimately, she was the one who was bringing the most accountability to the foster care system. So got a gizzard for that panel.
That was a surprise indeed. Bernadine, you were up next with a turkey leg this morning.
Yes, and I want to give State Representative-elect Katrina Pearson a leg, because I think that she did an extraordinarily good job during the primary, because she pushed an incumbent into a runoff. And she did this without the help of the top Republicans in the state. Even Trump did not endorse her. But once they saw that she was going to go into a runoff and had the probability of winning, they went on her side. And she told them to come on. You know, she reached out to them and she won and didn't even have a Democratic opponent. Yeah. And I want to point out, too, that because she even started as grassroots Tea Party.
Early on with Ted Cruz, yeah.
Yes, and now she's going to the State House.
Yeah, and indeed, she did get elected, Republican who was elected in Rockwall Heath area, who's heading to Austin. Bud, you're up next with two names that people might not know, but who are very influential.
But they know the subject. You know, Kevin Roberts and Pastor Robert Morris are a couple of the religious right Republicans, faith and values Republicans, who were really prominent in the Trump campaign this year. Kevin Roberts, head of Heritage now, is the guy who was the face of Project 2025, which almost tanked the Trump campaign all by itself when it was published. People said, oh my gosh, they want to do this, they want to do this, they want to do this. Trump had to actually disown Project 2025 and say, no, I didn't have anything to do with that. And then Pastor Morris from Gateway Church was on Trump's Faith Advisory Committee. He is one of several pastors from that last Trump campaign who were in trouble all year. So, the religious right in general had problems this year. Now, with Trump's new cabinet appointees, they see that the First Lady has distanced herself from pro-life. They see LGBT in the cabinet. The religious right got nothing but gizzards this year.
Do they play a role, though? Do Kevin Roberts and Robert Morris play a role at all, do you think, in this Trump administration?
I think that there are roles for the religious right, for faith and values conservatives. We see a few appointments going that way, but not to the point that church leaders want to see, and not to the point that the people who said that they're the ones who elected Donald Trump, they're not getting anything back, like I said, but gizzards.
Yeah. All right, I have the next award. It, too, is a gizzard, another maybe unconventional pick, you might say. Governor Greg Abbott. What are you talking about? Again, Whiteley, he pardoned Daniel Perry after a Travis County jury convicted him of murdering a Black Lives Matter protester in Austin. Governor Perry ignored Supreme Court rulings on the border. He ignored President Biden's new Title IX rulings protecting LGBTQ students. And then 2.5 years after the Uvalde school shooting, Governor Abbott has remained quiet, on Steve McCraw and his responsibility and the state's response to that school shooting there. The law and order governor is selecting the laws and the orders that he wants to follow, which is quite surprising considering that's how he bills himself, Bernadine.
Well, not only that, it has become typical of him. Law and order, if it fits within his agenda, he's law and order. But I don't expect anything differently now, because this is how he has been running the state for the last few years.
Indeed so. Ian, you're up next with the next recipient who's not really a politico, but certainly wades into politics.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a leg for Joe Rogan, Austin's own Joe Rogan, who's proven himself to be kind of the most critical interview on the national politics scene as well as on other issues. And so, whether it was Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, both made critical times in the campaign. They came down to Austin to talk on Joe Rogan's podcast with him, and he is seen as as a key voice in reaching working class male voters. And I think the Kamala Harris campaign is still the Democrats are still kind of questioning the decision to not appear on his podcast. So he very much made himself kind of a key part of the campaign and kind of part of the discourse moving forward.
Yeah, and Joe Rogan's influence is likely only going to grow in the political sphere as well. All right, we have a lot more recipients ahead here, including the Texas Democratic Party Chair Gilberto Hinojosa, Dallas City Council and Mayor Eric Johnson, Elon Musk, the Tarrant County Republican Party, and Wayne Hamilton's Project Red. Who's going to have a full plate this morning when Inside Texas Politics or Turkey Awards returns? All right, welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. We're handing out our annual Turkey Awards this morning. We give a turkey leg to those in politics who have something to brag about over the last year. And then guess who gets the gizzard? Those who could have done better in Texas politics. The round table doing the honors this morning, and Bernadine is up next with the next award.
Well, you know what? If I had 2 gizzards, since I could only give one, I would give it to the Texas Democratic Party Chair Hinojosa.
Tell us why.
Because for the devastating showing that they had in the November election, he blamed everyone but himself. He blamed billionaires, he blamed Biden, he blamed even those who thought about coming out to vote, instead of focusing on getting them out to vote or raising money for the party, he took no responsibility. Eventually, he resigned, but I think that he needs 2 gizzards and not 1.
And he said he's not going to run again, Bud, as Bernadine said.
Well, you know, I think all he could raise was a couple of old, dried-up gizzards. Was all he could raise for the party all year. So, but we'll give him the oldest, coldest leftover we can find.
All right. Well, you're up next with a counter to my gizzard earlier. The next award.
Yeah, you talked about Governor Greg Abbott as governor, but I wanted to give him a leg for his work in politics, his work as a politician. It was incredible in the primary. He said that he wanted the House to pass vouchers and that he was going to knock everybody out of office that didn't support it. They knocked 15 incumbents out of the Texas House, sometimes with challengers that were unknowns. They brought people out who he had totally feuded with, people who'd been on the opposite side of politics from him, and got them elected over incumbents in the House so that he could pass vouchers. Phenomenal showing in the spring. Then you turn around in the summer. The rest of the nation's not talking about immigration. We are here in Texas. So he starts loading people on buses, sending them all over the country. Unlike in Florida, it was pretty clear that these were people who wanted to go to New York, wanted to go to Chicago, wanted to go to LA. He says, we'll just send you there. And all of a sudden, the rest of the country is talking about immigration, the border problem, maybe the issue that pushed Donald Trump to victory. Greg Abbott is the one who came up with it.
You think so? You think his moves helped push him across?
I think that's what brought the border issue to the forefront. I think when people in New York, Chicago, Denver, and when those cities were so open and welcoming and said, let's give you hotel rooms and here's your welcome bag and all that, people started saying, wait a minute, we don't know if that's right. And it suddenly made people think about what's going on Laredo, Eagle Pass, Del Rio, in Texas. Yeah,
indeed, he does have some political muscle, and the governor did exercise that this year. All right, I have the next award this morning, and it's a Dallas-based award. It's for Dallas City Council and Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. The city's elected representatives, they get the award for not better organizing opposition to those controversial charter amendments and better explaining the consequences of them. The opposition campaign has started way late. It started just weeks ago, maybe a week or so before the early voting began. No one really seemed prepared, and that begs the question, where is the leadership at City Hall? Bernadine, answer that one for us.
It doesn't appear as if there is any, because you know what's so interesting? Every council person and mayor on that council was against a number of those charter members.
Right.
And they failed, or either the ones they didn't want to pass passed. So you must ask, where were they? And then I was talking to some of them, and they wanted to even, talking about blame game. They wanted to blame those organizers, those city, community people who stepped out front. They wanted to blame them for not giving them the money to run the campaigns instead of getting out there and campaigning for what they thought was best. So you're getting ready to come up with some issues that this council won't be able to handle. And where was the mayor?
Yeah, another case of the blame game there being bounced around. All right, Ian, you're up next with another high-profile Austin resident.
Yeah, got a leg for Elon Musk. And, you want to talk about someone who was coordinated and organized. It was Musk with, whether it was leading his America PAC, raising and spending over, millions upon millions of dollars at the presidential campaign in support of President-elect Donald Trump, allowing the Trump campaign to use their resources in different ways, extending their reach. And so, again, Musk was pivotal in this campaign, not just with his spending, but with his campaigning, with the message that he was giving, again, appealing to a lot of younger male voters. And, this influence only continues. He's, going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency with Vivek Ramaswamy. And, you got to keep an eye out for him, too, on the statewide level, too. He's already donated $1 million to Texans for lawsuit for reform. So as the legislative session kicks in next year, Elon Musk's presence and impact will be felt. Yeah,
Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and, of course, Joe Rogan as well. All right, Bernadine, you're up next with our next award for the Tarrant County Republican Party.
And I guess I'm just too disappointed with these county chairs and these county parties, because I'm giving a gizzard to the Tarrant County Republican Party because, number one, during the election, they were intent on removing voting sites from college campuses. And that's one of the voting blocks that we do try to get to vote, as well as everything that they did, they even lost the county to Cruz. So although President-elect Trump did win it, but I think that those efforts deserve a gizzard.
And Bud, that's your territory.
Well, you know, the Tarrant County Republican Party was very outspoken and has taken a much more conservative turn than in the past. They don't seem to have room for the kind of leaders who want to bring young people and bring more moderate people and minority voters into the party. It's kind of the opposite of the way we've seen Texas succeed on a statewide basis.
Yeah. You're up next, Bud, with the next award. Another lower profile name, but certainly somebody who's influential.
Yeah. Speaking of people who brought Latino voters into the party, Wayne Hamilton started Project Red Texas 2 years ago. They went around, they said, we're going to win the valley. Republicans can flip the valley. Nobody really believed them. You know, a few people gave them money. They had about $500,000, but they went in, opened offices, recruited candidates, put people in place to recruit candidates all across the valley, started at the bottom, recruited Republicans to run for offices where Republicans had never won before. Look now, they flipped the whole Rio Grande Valley to red. It was Wayne Hamilton's work that put all this in play, where Republicans organized in the valley and came up with these great victories that were incredible for the party.
Yeah, and let me ask you, there's no way to dismiss that one, because Republicans have been working hard in the valley, and they certainly succeeded this go around.
They certainly invested the effort, and they built it on a grassroots level. And when you're making that kind of effort, it's gonna pay off in terms of that connection that they're making, speaking to the issues that people were talking about. And so they certainly, they earned the returns that they got.
Yeah. All right, just a few names left here on the annual Turkey Awards when Inside Texas Politics returns. All right, welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. We're handing out our annual Turkey Awards this year. Just a few names left this morning. We want to get to those right now. I actually have the next award coming up. It is going to be a turkey leg for U.S. Congressman Michael McCall from Central Texas. You know, there are some Republicans right now in the GOP who prefer Vladimir Putin's strongman persona. But the House Foreign Affairs Committee chairman, outgoing chairman, Michael McCall, has been keeping his eye on the ball. He's the old school Reagan Republican in that sense. He continues to be influential in warning Speaker Johnson and others in the GOP about the ongoing threats from China, from Russia, from Iran as well. McCall is walking away from that, and I think the next big question for him that people are now chattering about, will he run for U.S. Senate if John Cornyn decides not to run? Bud, what do you think?
Well, I think that, one of the main things that he's talked about, though, where he's really been out front, is warning everybody about cyber threats.
Sure.
Cyber threats are the big part of the danger to America now. But, look at all the people now who want America to withdraw and, get out of the business of policing the rest of the world. He's made it clear that defending America begins on the other side of the world, and he's kept people's mind focused on national defense.
Good point. Ian, you're up next with the next award, and they're almost making a twofer in this episode.
Look, I'm taking Bernadine. She wanted to give 2 gizzards. I'm taking one of those, but throwing it back at the Texas Democrats. The returns speak for what they are. But as we were talking about Wayne Hamilton and the Republicans really making inroads in South Texas along the board, Democrats, really did not have much to show for their efforts this time. And the engagement, whether it was there was, what were the issues that they were focusing on too? Where was the talk about issues like Social Security, Medicaid, school funding, things like that? They really didn't show that they had the engagement, and it really, the way the Republicans did, and it really showed.
Yeah, indeed it did show. Bernadine, you're up next with a leg for someone who's been on this program many times.
Yes, and State Representative Jeff Leach. I'm going to give him a leg not only for his work on the Robertson case, where the man is on death row,
right,
and they're trying to prove, at least get him another trial hearing. I think that he's done not only an extraordinary job doing it, but he has brought in bipartisanship. And I think that that's what's needed at the State House. And then I also want to commend how he won his primary. He was one of those targeted by Attorney General Ken Paxton and other high-level Republicans, and he won with ease.
Yeah.
And I think that he does well, and and the way that he carries himself shows that he represents his district very well.
And he's been staying below the fray right now for the speaker's race, even though that's going to heat up here in the next month or so.
Well, He'll do what he has to do.
And we shall see. And Bud, we're going out with a gizzard this morning, and you have the last award.
One of the biggest gizzards, I think, has to go to the public school advocates in Texas, teachers, parents, administrators, everyone who didn't protect their House members. Their House members were under attack. Where was the famous education vote? Where did the education vote? They lost almost all their House races. They once again, and then it comes around the fall, and the education vote really wasn't organized in the Senate race with Colin Allred either. The educators of Texas did not stand by their friends. Most of all, the parents of Texas, all those public schools, and the parents. So many of them voted for vouchers.
But when's the last time the education vote really swayed something in Texas? It seems like I don't remember a time, but I'm sure you can go back in the archives here.
You're asking me the trivia question, and
yeah.
the one that's cited is when Governor White was elected. That's the last time people say that the education vote made a difference, and then the Ross Perot education reforms turned the educators against him, and they threw him out in the next election. We haven't seen educators really make a big difference since then. But look at the numbers. They could if they tried.
Yeah, and education is going to be a very big deal in the next legislative session come January.
It's going to be the primary issue, in the legislative session. It's going to be interesting, how the debate over vouchers goes, but that's going to be the dominant issue of the session.
Will we see the education segment come out there and really try to protect schools this time? They didn't, as Bud said, during the election, but they didn't.
Well, and they haven't, as you said.
Yeah.
So we just wait to see. But also, you must wonder. You must wonder, and you mentioned parents and teachers,
yeah.
But you have to wonder how much interest they want in trying to educate their children. And I'm not saying that they don't have the interest,
sure.
But the vote doesn't show it.
Indeed so. Hey, thanks for watching the annual Turkey Awards here at Inside Texas Politics. Tell us what you think about it. Were we off? Who would you predict for the awards? Let us know. Thanks for watching.